Hello everyone, welcome back to Multipurpose with Lakshit. I'm back with Desiree today. She is an digital content creator and an podcast host. So thank you for joining in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so better than starting and getting into whatever you do, so can you just explain me about what is your background?
So I come from a media background. I've been 8 years now in media. Started with print media, then went on to digital media.
Uh-huh.
So basically, gone from writing in a journal to writing in magazines, and now into the digital space.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you like to speak about yourself? What you do? How did you get into writing? What's the passion? Why did you choose writing? And you're also an influencer. So why did you become an influencer?
So writing for me happened very early in my life. I think I started maintaining a journal, like a diary, personal diary, when I was 8 years old.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't even know that it was a thing back then. It was just something that I did because it was something that came to me so easily, just like writing, and it would start very silly, like how my day was in school, just like that.
Yeah.
And it just became a habit. I began to do it every day. It just became like, as you grow up, your understanding of emotions, it also increases, and so that sort of translated into the way I wrote also.
Yeah.
And I think it was after college. I was just, it just fell into my lap. I believe that, if you really, really want something with all of your heart and soul,
Yeah.
the universe sort of gives it to you. It gives you opportunities to go and get that.
Mm-hmm.
So after college, I was just out with one of my friends, and I bumped into this editor of a leading magazine that I used to read a lot. Okay, so my childhood was just writing and reading. Like, if you
Okay.
locked me in a room, that was all I was doing.
Okay.
So I bumped into this magazine editor, and this was way before Instagram, and the internet was also as influential in our lives as it is today.
Yeah.
So when I met her, I told her how much I had read her columns, her magazine.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know is she gave me a break, and I worked with her, under her. That's how I started out.
Okay.
And it was the best thing ever. I mean, there was literally no looking back after that. And yeah, that's how I got into writing professionally.
How did you get into becoming a micro influencer?
So becoming an influencer wasn't something like it wasn't like a goal or something. It just happened very naturally.
Okay.
At a time when this was at a time when influencers weren't even like a big thing. Like, it wasn't something you put on your bio or on your CV or anywhere out there. It was just I was out there just doing my thing. I was writing, and I was just being myself, honestly. And I never thought that by the time I got onto Instagram, I never thought of it as, like something I was doing on purpose. I was just putting videos out there, putting my content out there, writing, doing my thing, and I would get these messages from people. I had a small little blog also on the side where I wrote a lot about life, personal experiences, and people would message me, and it really felt very, very good when people would say that, oh, they looked up to me, that I inspired them somehow, and I didn't even realize that I was doing any of that. So it happened just very organically, and then suddenly it was a thing, suddenly being an influencer was a thing. And I feel like the word influencer it's a two-edged sword. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there are influencers out there who they're obviously making money doing putting their creative skills out there, with brands and all of that. And then there is another side of an influencer where you're literally talking about the realities that people face, like just trying to show them another perspective, and it comes very organically. It comes from personal experience. It comes from just being you.
Yeah.
I think that just sort of happened with time.
Okay.
I didn't think that it was leading to anything. I didn't see it going a particular way. It just happened, and then one fine day there was this magazine that decided they wanted to do a feature on me and how I had just embraced every part of me and just gone out there and done what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a big deal until it actually was, and then there was a Cosmo feature that happened, and then BuzzFeed, She the People, all of them picked it up, and then there was Josh Talks, and so it just sort of spiraled. Like it just went where it went. I never actually thought that I want to be an influencer till I ended up being one.
Okay, wonderful. This is very interesting to listen how you think about that. Yeah. So you have so you have already been a Josh Talk speaker, and
Yes, I have.
and you also you speak on wonderful things. So what do you really speak about? If you can just speak about that over here.
So while I speak about a range of different things from disabilities to mental health to emotional well-being to just personal experiences, relationships, life. What I really at the center of all of these topics is self-acceptance. It's not even self-love, because there are times when you will not love yourself at all, but you also accept yourself that, you know what, I don't love myself like this. Right now, I'm being very ugly. This is a very, very ugly state of mind, state of being. But I accept myself. Like, I am flawed. I have these faults that I have to work on, but I'm accepting it. So I think at the heart of all of these things is a lot of self-acceptance. There's a huge difference. There's self-love and there's self-acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think self-acceptance is way more important than self-love, because on the days when you don't love yourself, you have to ask yourself, do you still accept yourself?
Yeah.
So I think at the heart of all of this, mental health, disability, trying to be a better version of yourself, motivation, positive speaking, negative speaking, all of it. I think at the heart of all of what I talk is self-acceptance.
Okay. So what does really self-acceptance means to you?
For me, it's an ongoing thing. It's like a continuous thing. It's like having a relationship, or it's literally like having a relationship, but with yourself. It's you have to understand that we are not just one person. We have so many aspects of ourselves. We have the side that others see. We have the side that only our families see. We have a side that only our partners will see, a side that only our professional, like our colleagues, will see. And then we have an online self. And all of these selves, we are all of these people. We are all of these aspects. We are all of these persons. The idea is that when you're alone, when there is no screen, when there are no people, when there is no professional obligation, when there is no social media channel, when there is none of that, when you're all alone with yourself, are you content with that person? A lot of times what happens is we don't like being alone, is because we don't like who we are when we are alone. We don't know who we are when we are alone. So we try to fill those spaces with dating apps, with online content, with virtual friends, or we socialize a lot, or we go out a lot, or we end up spending a lot. Like all of these things, they become like fillers. Like we're just trying to fill the gaps out because we don't understand ourselves. So I think for me, self-acceptance is basically when you're alone with yourself. Do you cultivate that? Do you accept that you have a relationship with yourself and it takes work? It's a lot of work. It's a lifetime of work. You keep working on yourself. You're never ever complete. You're never ever perfect. You've never ever reached the pinnacle. You've never completely achieved everything. So that's what self-acceptance is, where you're sitting alone with yourself and you're like, okay, I have work to do. I need to work on myself and I need to keep working on myself till the end of time. That to me is self-acceptance.
Okay, yeah, it's very, very interesting. Thanks for taking us deep in self-acceptance. So my question here is, you write, and how has been the journey of writing for you?
It's been very therapeutic. because like I speak a lot. I've done talks, I do videos, and like I talk to people. I'm great at conversation, but sometimes, like when it comes to actually speaking about your most personal experiences, your most intimate emotions,
Yeah.
you can't put certain things into words. And I think that's where writing has really helped me from a very young age.
Okay.
It's helped me understand who I myself was before I had to put myself out into a world
Okay.
where others had to accept me, or where I had to tell others who I was. Because you can't always go into a room and tell people who you are.
Yeah.
People are going to define you the way they want to define you.
Yeah.
And you can't help that. Like, they will either like you, dislike you, they will
Yeah.
use you, misuse you, whatever. That's in their heads. You can't change that.
Yeah.
But you have to know who you are
Okay.
before and above all of that else, so that others' perceptions of you will not affect you.
Yeah.
So that's what writing helped me do for the most part of my life. I think it helped me understand who I was, what I was facing, what I was dealing with, how I was dealing with those things. And yeah, it just helped me to put that into perspective. Even today, like, there are times when I don't understand how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, and then writing really helps put it into place. It's like sometimes, there's a puzzle in front of you and you don't know how to solve it. So you just sit and you solve that puzzle. For me, writing is that puzzle. It helps me sort myself out and solve my own self.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand. So say yourself, you say you have a disability. So what is really a disability you speak about? Would you like to speak about that?
So I think so my disability is basically I wouldn't even call it disability. It's a genetic condition. It's called microtia.
Okay.
In the condition, what happens is it's a deformation. So basically, the ear is either underdeveloped or entirely not developed.
Okay.
So there's no eardrum. There's no formation of a ear. There's hearing loss and this is in my right ear.
Yeah.
So there's hearing loss and there's no eardrum. And so I was also taken to a lot of doctors early on in my childhood. We consulted with a lot of doctors, and they all suggested plastic surgery.
Okay.
But what plastic surgery would do is it would create an external ear. There won't be like they cannot replicate a eardrum or anything. So none of that can be touched. It would just be an external ear that would be created. They would graft skin from other parts of my body and then form that. But it would, yeah, like that would be it. And it would leave scars and everything. So I decided to forego that. I decided to just go with it. I mean, I can still hear. It's not like I can't hear. Sometimes I feel like I can hear better than most people.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the condition that I have. And in terms of disability, I think I just generally talk of every disability because as a country, I think we have a long way to go right now to sort of facilitate and enable the people who come from a disabled person's background.
Yeah.
So in that space, a lot of work needs to be done. A lot of research needs to be done in terms of social welfare, in terms of medical healthcare. Also, a lot needs to be done.
Okay.
Another aspect there is mental well-being for disabled persons. It's an entirely different ballgame. Because mental health, any which ways, is something everyone deals with. With a disabled person, you have to understand that mental health also transcends into the path where you feel unable to do something, you feel helpless, you feel left out, cast out, socially sort of discarded. And these are things that translate into your emotional space, into your mental space. So we need to work in tandem in all of these things to like make society more inclusive for disabled people, for anyone. And disability just doesn't always have to be physical. Most of the time it's also mental more than it's physical.
Yeah.
So I think that's a barrier that we really, really need to cross, break, tackle, whatever.
Okay. How do you think it has affected your mental health?
In terms of mental health, a lot of times what happens, and it starts early, okay, for kids, for example, as kids, okay, and it starts early on in families also, like if you're a kid born with some sort of deformity, disability, even your families tend to respond to it in a very different way. A
Yeah,
lot of times the kid is removed because it's like they won't be able to do it, or like basically your family has already decided for you that you will not be able to do it,
yeah,
instead of giving you tools that can help you bridge that gap, or like instead of replacing, like there's always replacements, like you can always help a child do better.
yeah.
The first step is to let them know that there's nothing that you can't do
Okay.
if you don't put your mind to it. If you want to do it, if you work at it, you can do it.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step. So it definitely starts on the at the family level.
Uh-huh.
Then at the educational level too, I think we need to have schools that are more inclusive, that spend more time telling all kids, not just kids with disabilities, all kids, that they can do whatever they want, and then giving them those tools to do it,
Yeah.
not sidelining disabled kids, and only concentrating on the ones that you can handle because you don't know how to handle them. So I think that needs to be bridged. It starts early. It needs to start at the family levels and at the school levels, and that's how you build that sort of sense of confidence in a kid, to
Okay.
let them know that they're just like everybody else and
Yeah.
they can do whatever they want. So I think that's the first step. After that, of course, it's like you keep working at it.
So how at your personal level, how did you break that odds out that I can do everything what I want? My
See
disability.
here, I think I'm very grateful because I was blessed with parents who never made me feel like I was different.
Yeah.
They never told me, "Oh, you can't do this because you have a deformed ear, or that it'll impair your hearing." Like I used to love music. So I used to learn how to play a little piano and everything, and they never told me that, oh, you know what, because you don't have a ear, that's going to stop you from being a musician,
Yeah.
or stop you from dancing or whatever. That they never told me that. They just let me go out and do it on my own and figure it out. If I could or could not do it, that would be on me.
Yeah.
So I think this is something I'm very grateful to them for, because they never made me feel like I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So that sense of confidence definitely stemmed and only got better, and like it built because of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the journey of your life? Hard, good, better, best. How would you describe this?
Um, wow. It's been hard. It's because there are a lot of different aspects to a person's journey.
Yeah.
There's not just one aspect,
Yeah.
and more times than not, everything sort of mixes and mingles with everything else. So it's not been easy,
Uh-huh.
but I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't take anything away, because that has also taught me a lot. It has taught me to face things on my own, become brave, independent, or tackle
Yeah.
things in a
Yeah.
better way. And I think a lot of people blame a lot of their lives on the hardships, on a lot of things. But I think
Yeah.
that we can learn. We can learn from every bad thing more than we can learn from every thing.
Okay.
Of course, I think that we need to really, like, when push comes to shove, you just sometimes you have no option but to just push everything through, and just know that you can't turn back, you can't look this side or that side. You just have to
Yeah.
keep going ahead,
Yeah.
however slowly you can, however fast you can. That's on you, depending on what you have with you.
Mhm.
Basically, you have to make the most of what you have, even if it feels like there's nothing.
Okay.
So it's been a tough journey, but it's been one of the more what's the word I would use? It's been a very, very evolutionary
Yeah, yeah.
experience. It's
Yeah.
been a learning experience, and I've learned a lot.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to be like that, like for the rest of my life. So I look forward to it.
Okay, wonderful. So, coming where you work, you said you work at school group. So,
Yeah.
how does it really works over there? As it's an, I think it's a very well known digital company. I have seen a lot of videos of them. So, how does it works over there, and how the company is, in a different, how to describe it, and how things go over there?
So we're very hardworking. We're very young. We're very fresh. We're like always on the go. We're always working. Like there's like literally like sometimes content will spur up at 2 a.m. and then everyone's working at it. So there's literally never a dull moment. I think that's how I would sort of describe my experience working at Scoop. There's never a dull moment. You're constantly learning, getting exhausted while learning, but learning again, and then
Yeah.
it's just you just keep moving forward, and it's been very interesting. We're like a family within a family, so like it's very interesting. There's a lot of fun, and there's obviously a lot of work, but it's been very, very interesting.
Okay. What would be an advice to anyone who wants to become a writer?
Um, don't stop yourself from feeling vulnerable. I think people, a lot of times we block out the vulnerability because we don't want others to see how weak, quote unquote, weak that would make us. But I think being vulnerable is a strength that not many of us are able to accept. So
Okay.
when you're writing, be as vulnerable as you can be, and be as truthful about yourself that you can be. Like
Yeah.
you cannot tell another person's truth, but you can tell your truth when you're writing. So stay truthful to yourself and don't be afraid to be vulnerable.
Okay, so almost we are at the end of the podcast. So I have just five last
Okay.
questions. So what was the best advice you ever received from someone?
Wow. The best advice, honestly, Um, I've never really received much advice. Like, yeah, uh, I don't know how to say that, but I think my mother's words will keep coming back to me. Like, she put me out there. Like, literally, she taught me that whatever you learn from experience. So you go out there and do your thing, and you do it on your own. That's how you learn. And
Yeah.
I think that's the best life advice that I have received, not in words, but in experience through my mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the worst advice?
The worst advice. Uh, the worst advice would just close your eyes and follow it. I mean, don't just follow anything blindly, I would say. And
Yeah.
that's just go with your gut. Definitely go with your gut feeling
Okay.
always.
Okay.
But don't just blindly follow something. I think people just say, like, when you know, but I think you should always still weigh the pros and cons, because it's always better to go in knowing what you stand to lose versus what you stand to gain, and whether it's worth it or not. So be calculated. Definitely be calculated. Don't just go into anything just blindly. I think that's I mean, it only works once or twice. Like, you need to know what you're getting into most times.
Okay. So an advice to anyone who wants to fight with the mental health, get themselves better mentally.
Never be afraid to talk. There may not be enough people to listen to you. There may not be enough people who even understand what you're going through,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Chances are no one will understand you, because uh, no one will truly know what you're going through until they walked in your shoes.
Okay.
And that's literally no one except yourself.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that it's okay to talk. It's actually important to talk.
Mhm.
It's okay to seek help. That does not make us weak. That just makes us aware of ourselves, knowing what we need to work on. And that's always the first step to understanding that you need to get better mentally, emotionally, whatever. Never be afraid of speaking about how you're feeling in any space.
Okay.
So this is very, very important.
Okay. Okay. Again, another advice for anyone who wants to fight their odds.
Sorry, fight there?
Fight their, fight with their anything which they think is not right in themselves.
Don't fight it. Don't fight your faults. Try to understand your faults.
Okay.
And try to work around those faults. I think whatever makes us a so-called bad person is also what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
So learn to understand that every human being is balanced. There is good and bad in everyone.
Okay.
Ignoring your faults or denying your faults will not make you a better person.
Yeah.
Understanding your faults and working with them, working towards bettering yourself as a person while understanding that you will always be flawed is what will make you a better person truly.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. I know amazing answer you gave about that. Thank you. Again, what question can I add? Yeah, you can just, this is like an open place for you. You can just leave a message or speak about anything you want to talk over here in this question.
So I think like right now there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of confusion in people's mind as to how to think and how to feel. I mean, life is hard. It's not going to get easier. Like this way or that way. Anything that whenever we get out of something, we don't get out of it on an easier scale. We just get out of it on a stronger scale so we can, face other things better.
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand that and understand that every single person is going through something. Yeah. Every single person. You may not understand what they're going through and you may not be able to imagine it, but that doesn't mean they're not going through it.
Yeah.
So I think understanding that and sometimes giving a person the benefit of doubt is important because we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But it comes down to how you treat a person.
Okay.
Right now, I think just being good to people, just doing whatever you can within your abilities, capacities is more than enough. That makes you just as human as anybody else. It doesn't make you good or it doesn't make you bad.
Right.
So just go and do that. Just be human and understand that everyone's going through something. Yeah. And if you can help, by all means, go ahead and help. And don't criticize someone who can't because maybe they can't, maybe they don't have the means. But if you do, go ahead and do that. Don't judge others because I'm pretty sure everyone in this world is trying to fight something or someone and get out the other side. So that's my only message to people.
So yeah, thank you very much. We are done with this episode. A wonderful, motivation, wonderful experiences you spoke about. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
It was my ultimate pleasure to have you. Thank you.